Becoming a millionaire with your TSP is not as hard as you think. You may be leaving hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on the table because of 3 crucial steps you haven't taken in your retirement accounts yet. 1. Don't time the market. 2. Pick the right investment strategy and stick with it. And the most important by far, 3. Contribute the maximum amount from early in your career. You can at least double what your TSP will make by changing these 3 things. The last step will more than double it just by itself. Enough screwing around. Let's get into this. Timing the market is essentially believing that you or others can pick the correct time to buy and sell investments over the short term. It is one of the most common and biggest mistakes investors make. The most common form of this is selling during a rapid market drop, which is a very natural thing to do when panicking. I should know, I've done it, but it has devastating consequences on your TSP balance, as well as on any other retirement account, be it 401k or IRA, or even normal investment account. When you try to time the market this way and avoid part of the downturn, it is extremely difficult to come out ahead. You have far less than a 50% chance of doing this correctly. Far less. This is because in your decision to sell and then later to buy back in, you have to be right twice. The first time you have to be right is in your decision to sell. You have to sell before things drop too much. Then once you sell, things need to continue to drop for a while. Next, you need to realize when the price is down to almost the lowest point and then buy again. After you buy, prices need to go back up again. Getting both decisions right is extremely uncommon. Sometimes there are false drops in the market that just shoot back up. In studying people who try to time the market, a majority of them lose money versus if they had left their accounts alone. You don't know how low or high the market will go. I'm going to give you 2 recent examples of market timing gone wrong. First, here's my caveat. I'm not a super political person. I'm not making an endorsement or a political statement here. In fact, I'm a Republican, but I think Trump is kind of a weirdo. Well, maybe that was a political statement. I'll just edit that part out. A lot of people sold stocks and mutual funds when President Trump was elected. They were sure the market would crash with that crazy guy in office. Did it? Quite the opposite. The market went on to rise greatly during his presidency. It ended up rising 56%, which is an 11.6% average rise per year. The people that sold when he was elected lost a lot of money, seriously hurting their financial future. Okay, I don't want to piss off the Democrats. How did Trump's 4 years compare to other presidents? Well, if you consider the average gain per year, he was the best Republican president since 1920. But both Obama, 12.9%, and Clinton, 15.1%, did better. Here's the second example of market timing gone wrong in recent history. The COVID pandemic. When COVID became a thing, the stock market dived about 15% on March 11th and March 12th, 2020. By the 23rd, it was down 30%. The world got pretty scary. Even people who usually don't sell in a panic sold in a panic. This time it's different, they said. Well, it turns out, as it quite often does, this time wasn't different for the stock market. It recovered more quickly than expected. A year later, stocks were up almost 80%. And if you sold when Trump was elected, and then again for COVID, you were doubly screwed. Here's the bluff, bottom line up front. The stock market over the long term produces an annual return between 7 and 9%. Don't F with that. Don't change your long-term investment plan because of things like good news, bad news, pandemics, elections, market crashes, recessions, depressions, interest rates, housing market, Martian invasions, etc. No, this list is not all inclusive. Don't sell during any unforeseen circumstance. Don't time the market. Leave your effing money alone and you'll outperform everyone else you know over the long term. Now that you understand what not to do, we should talk about what you should do. Pick the right investment strategy and stick with it. That means choosing a relatively uncomplicated asset allocation for your TSP and never changing it your entire life. Sounds easy, right? But how can you be sure you're picking the right strategy that will work for decades? Let's turn to the teachings of likely the best investor on the face of the earth. And no, it's not me, but I appreciate you thinking that. Close. Warren Buffett. In 2007, Warren made a bet. He challenged any hedge fund manager to outperform the S&P 500 index fund over the next 10 years. This is a significant challenge. Many investment managers measure their success by comparing themselves to the S&P 500 index. Warren Buffett's reason for this bet was his long-standing belief that almost no one, no matter how talented, can invest in a way that will outperform what the S&P 500 index does over the long term. When it came to the results of this bet, he was right. He didn't have many takers for this challenge, just one. The one hedge fund manager placed a $1 million bet with him. The results? Not even close. Over the next 10 years, the S&P 500 index would average about 7.5% per year. The hedge fund averaged a little more than 2. This is an important lesson for investing the right way in your TSP. The C fund is the S&P 500 index that beat the hedge fund. Don't make daily, monthly, or yearly changes to your account like most active managers and most panic investors do, which reminds me of something else you need to avoid. These lame groups that specialize in short-term strategies for TSP investing, or any other investing for that matter. These companies like to look at the past performance of funds and tell you which ones are poised for growth in the near future. They'll tell you how much to invest in which fund and when to make changes. These come in many forms. There are subscription sites, newsletters, Facebook groups, blogs. The scams take many forms. If you follow this crap, you will vastly underperform a person who invests simply 100% in the C fund over any 20, 30, or 40-year period. The difference is easily hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over a lifetime. 100% C fund, which mimics the S&P 500 index, is just one effective TSP strategy, and there are many. More on that later. I'm not saying these companies are purposely misleading you. They may not know how bad their advice is or how negatively it can affect your long-term growth, but I do, and now you do too. Passive investing using something like the S&P 500 index fund is always superior to any actively managed or professionally managed investment. Not to mention these investors will charge you fees and commissions and still underperform the S&P 500 index. Telling you this Warren Buffett story is to drive home the point that simple index fund investing yields superior results to any form of active or professional investment. All you need to do is pick a passive index fund strategy and stick with it over the long term. Yes, you could do what Warren is saying and just invest in the C fund, which is essentially the S&P 500 index. That is, however, not your only choice. There are several variations of this strategy that can be done inside your TSP account. See my other video popping up above that explains several asset allocation choices, so you know not to market time and you know to pick a strategy and stick with it. But I've left the most important step by far for last. Invest the max in your TSP and your IRA. Yikes, I can't afford to max out the TSP, especially with my salary. I hear you. In 2022, the maximum contribution for TSP as well as 401ks is $20,500 a year. How many of us can afford to save that much money for retirement each year? Not many, right? If you figure out a way to save the maximum contribution each year from early in your career, you will be able to shorten your working life by 10, 20, even 30 years. How would it feel to have that many years given back to you? Years that you can do what you want with. Time with the kids before they moved out. Time traveling around. Time snorting coke and drinking whiskey. I'm kidding about that one. Well, half kidding. That's the difference it makes by contributing the maximum amount from early in your career. I made a huge mistake with my TSP. I had the capacity to save the maximum amount from day one in the military, but I didn't realize how important it was. I've done the math. If I had been contributing the maximum amount from the beginning instead of waiting until halfway through my career to start maxing, it would have far more than doubled the size of my TSP portfolio today, even though I was doing everything else right with investing that money. The money you invest early in your career is far more important than what you invest later because of the magic of compound interest. It is because that money has far more time to grow and compound. That is what makes you rich from your TSP, 401k, and or IRA. Now let's talk frugal living, even though everybody hates that. Find ways to make extra money, AKA side hustles, side business, have a budget, live more frugally, get your spouse if you have one on board with your financial goals. You are probably saying you can't afford to max the TSP. That might be true, but take a hard look at your finances and find ways to earn more and spend less. These days, people find ways to make money from little side businesses or remote jobs more so than ever before. Your biggest expenses are your house and car. Find ways to cut back in these areas. What's your debt situation like? How much do you spend on memberships, vacations, shopping, Amazon, etc.? You get the point. If you don't contribute the maximum amount, you get as close as you can. Every little bit makes a huge difference early in your career. What if you're reading this at the end of your career? That's okay. Start investing correctly from today on. There's no time like the present to set yourself up for getting rich in your TSP. Pass on your knowledge to others who are earlier in their careers and put them in a better position than you. These three things can be the key to your financial independence. Separately, they all have the potential to make you a TSP millionaire. Altogether, these rules have the potential to explode your earnings. Remember, this advice applies just as well to any retirement account. 401ks, IRAs, it's all good. This is Rich from Rich on Money. Thank you for watching today. Look at these videos you can watch. See this cool subscribe button. Leave a comment. Rich on Money, signing off.